Hi, in this video we'll have a look at the three ways by which we can actually get the data from a request in Spring. So this is a very simple application, nothing much in it. This is a Spring Boot application, so we have a nice system public static void main, and we are starting it up here using a Spring Boot class Spring application. So once we do run our main method, we get the system up and running. We also have a greeting controller, so all the three ways will be shown on the controller here. And we have a POJO, which will come in use when we are using the model attribute. So other than that, there is a single view. It's a simple HTML page called greeting.html, and it will show whatever it gets from the controller here using a simple expression. So let's start. So we have something called a controller in Spring MVC based on the dispatcher servlet giving the request to the controller. This controller annotation comes in play in a pattern called MVC or model view controller. So controller is the main receiver of a request after the dispatcher servlet selects it and sends it. It will decide which method this particular URL is mapped to and will call the appropriate method. So let's have a look at this particular annotation. So controller is an annotation and the target is type, which simply means that it will be targeting a interface or class. Then it is a component, hence the component scanner will pick it up as a bean. Indicates that an annotated class is a controller, that is a web controller mostly. This annotation serves as a specialization of add component, as we already have the component here, allowing for implementation classes to be auto detected through class path scanning. So component scan will pick this one up. It is typically used in combination with annotated handler methods based on the request mapping annotation. So as we go in a controller, we have it on the class. So the type is interface or class, and we have it on a class. So greeting controller is a controller now. It is used with request mapping as we read in the documentation. So this URL is mapped using request mapping, and whatever comes through this URL will be handled by greeting. So let's have a look at request mapping. So request mapping is an annotation and it targets a method and type. So it can be on a method or a type, so it can be on a class too. I'll show you how it works. And what it says here is annotation for mapping web request onto specific handler classes and or handler method. So handler classes because it is of type, and handler methods because it is of method too. So target can be both. Provides a consistent style between servlet and portlet environment, etc. You can go through the documentation. This is a long one. So once we get a request on greetings, we will give it to greeting. So the first way here by which we can extract data from a request is request param. So let's see what is a request param. So the request param annotation targets a parameter. So it is inside a method's parameter where we give a request param annotation. Annotation which indicates that a method parameter should be bound to a web request parameter. Simple to understand till here. So how do we implement it? So here we are giving a request param. The value is name. So basically we will be getting something like name equal to something. It is not required here. We are making it as false, and if somebody doesn't provide the value for name, we'll give a default value as word. So this entire parameter is mapped to a string name. So this is done by Spring itself. Once we get this, we put it in a model attribute and send it to our greeting.html. So let's see how it works. So here we have something called zeroCool, and let's make it a greeting because we have it as a greeting. Let's copy this. Can I copy this? Yeah. So we can copy this and let's just change this part to greeting. So once we have this, we enter, we get hello zeroCool. So if you missed something there, let's make it as a cap and then fire. So now we have a capital zeroCool. If you guys have watched the movie, you will remember zeroCool, if you know which movie I'm talking about. So that's the way you use request param. The second way is a path variable. So one interesting thing, if you would have noticed about request param, is it looks like it used to come in a servlet request. We used to fire request.get parameter, giving it the parameter name, and we used to extract the parameter. Similarly, we have the second way of extracting the data is at path variable. Let's see what is a path variable. So a path variable also targets a parameter. So it comes in the method's parameter, but the difference is that a method parameter should be bound to a URI template variable supported for request mapping annotated handler methods in servlet environment. So let's see how it works. @path variable takes a name and assigns it to the name. Then we can take the name here, similarly put it in an attribute and send it to greeting. The important part is something like this. You see, we don't get it like name equal to value. We can simply put the value in the greeter. Let's see how it works. So we come here, we put it here. We put it here as greeter, and then we put it here as Doom and enter, and now we have hello Doom. Look at the URI. We have it as a URI variable and it is hello Doom. So it is as so that's how you take a path variable. The next way is to use something called a model attribute. So a model attribute, let's see the documentation. So a model attribute can be put on a parameter and method. Here I am just making it here I am using it as a parameter. So the annotation that binds a method parameter or method return value to be named to a named model attribute. So that's the important part, a named model attribute. So what we do here is, as it is a parameter, we are making it as a parameter, and the request comes with a name parameter which maps to the model name. So the model name has an attribute name. So it will go through the model, it will search if there is something like name here. If there is a name which comes in the request, it will assign it to the name, and then we are just printing it to show how it works. It will fire the getter setters and it will assign it the attribute the name, and here we are again setting it in and sending it to. So let's see how this one works. So it is something like greet, and then we are putting the same thing as name equal to 0. Cool. We have it. So we have given it here as greet name equal to 0. Cool. So this name is very important here. If we mispronounce it or something like name means, it will be unable to find it and it will come as null. So greet should have a name should be in a model, and we can then fire the getter setters. Mostly the model attribute is used to take the value from a form or something and then assign it to the model. So if you have a user form and you have the attributes and things come in a request, you can directly assign it. The work of finding all the attributes and assigning the name and getting it, everything is done by Spring. So these are the three ways you can extract data from a request in Spring MVC. Thanks for